Hi, this is Jim Musser with Upstream Ministries, and this is episode 82 on Views from Downstream. And this week I'd like to talk about what I term self-centered parenting, which means basically parents who consider their own desires for their children over what the Lord may desire. And I've dealt with that many times over the years while I was in campus ministry. And one of the things that I did with engaged couples in premarital counseling was encourage them to establish boundaries in their relationship, particularly regarding holidays and when children entered the picture. Because parents often want their kids, as they have been used to, come home for the holidays. They want to have their grandkids' attention. They want to see them. And so they begin insisting that they come for this or that holiday so they can see them and their grandkids. And of course, there's another set of in-laws that are having the same interest. And so it puts the young adults in a bind because they're trying to please their parents or their in-laws, and the in-laws often and the parents aren't making that easy because they have certain demands. And so I encourage them to set very strict boundaries so that they would have control of how they spent their holidays and their time. And I also dealt with that, particularly with mission trips. Often it was overseas or out of the country, but even sometimes it was just mission trips within the country where parents either were concerned about their kids' safety, or they were going to miss out on a certain holiday, or they were used to having them home during that period of time, like spring break. And so they would put pressure on their kids to not go on this trip, even though the kid might be saying, I just feel like the Lord wants me to go on this trip. And it just puts the young adult in a bind, because the parent wants something and the kid is wanting something else, and often that's based on what they think God is desiring them to do. And I've also dealt with students who decided to do majors different than what their parents anticipated. And they may have gone to, say, for accounting, which would provide a solid income and career, to going into campus ministry, say. They wanted to do an internship with us or go on to do some kind of ministry, and parents would object because it wasn't along the lines that they had envisioned for their child's future. And often they weren't willing to consider what the Lord might want. They were considered what they wanted and what they envisioned for their child. Now, I'm not saying that it was without good intention. I mean, I know that a lot of parents are concerned about the financial futures of their kids. And so going into ministry of any sort or being a missionary is not going to be a financial windfall by any stretch. But the reality is, if parents are Christians, then they have to relinquish lordship over their kids. Now, you have been given the responsibility of caring for them and raising them to love the Lord. That's your main responsibility. But at a certain point, you have to relinquish them to the Lord and let them make decisions based on what they think the Lord is leading them to do, whether you agree with them or not. Because you're not to be Lord over your children. The Lord is to be the Lord. And it just seems like it's very difficult for parents sometimes to realize that. And they may say that in their minds, even out loud, they know, yeah, I'm not Lord of my child. But the way in which they seek to influence their kids is really a way of trying to um, get their kids to do what they actually want. And that's just not a good thing. The question you have to ask yourself is, who is Lord over your children? If it is God, Jesus, then he has to have preeminence in what decisions they make. And as a 20-year-old, if they believe that the Lord is leading them to go on this summer mission trip or Christmas break trip to do work for the Lord, then you have to respect that. And it may be disappointing to you, but there are worse things than being disappointed. There are worse things than not having your child there for the holidays, even though they've been there every Christmas. We dealt with that many times when we took groups to South Africa. There was every trip. So it was over Christmas usually. And every trip we had parents raising issues with the fact that their child was going to be gone over Christmas. And it's like, how many Christmases do you have in your life? You have a lot. And missing one, missing two is not going to ruin your life or ruin your Christmas, really. And so, again, it's just really stepping back and getting the perspective. The Lord is in charge of my child's life. And I don't want to be the one to interfere with that. And so we have to really gauge what our motivations are to say, well, I don't think you should do this. Is that the result of prayer and really seeking the Lord? Or is it, well, I would just rather not you do that because of my fears about this or that, or just my selfish wants of you to be here for a holiday or whatever. That's the most important thing, is to figure that out. But God wants to use young people, and it's difficult for him to use them if the very people who claim that he's Lord of their lives are the ones that are stepping in and saying, no, you can't do that. I'm not going to allow that. And if you do, there's going to be consequences. Not going to get as much money from us as you thought you were going to. We're not going to pay for certain things, whatever. And I've seen that before. Pressure is placed on young people to do their parents' bidding, and that is wrong, and that is sin in reality, particularly as they're adults. Now, when they're young teens, they're still under your authority. You can exert some pressure on them, but as young adults, they need to be free from that and allowed to make decisions according to what the Lord is leading them to do. So I just encourage you to, if you're a parent and this is your kind of leaning to want your way, to step back and realize that God may have a different plan for your child. And if he has a different plan, it's better than your plan, guaranteed. You can trust him. And so relinquish your desire to control and let him handle it. And watch what he will do in and through your child. It will be amazing. So I'm going to leave it there and just ask you to contemplate that. If this rings somewhat true in your own life as a parent, then seek the Lord on it. And I know that in the end you won't be disappointed. You will see what God will do. And until next week, may you have a blessed week, and we'll see you then.